Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here at 3T. I'm up in episode 256 of my weekly Q&A show to people's questions. We got a pretty solid episode, and we will be starting off with the man who usually likes to be number one. I don't know why. Maybe he has some crazy fetish with being number one on this video, or these type of videos, I should say. And that is Mr. Santiago Scarpino, and you want to know, what are my thoughts on Final Fantasies 2 and 3? To be honest, I've never actually played the first three original Final Fantasy games. I know that when some of those games were released here in the States, there were certain entries that were not released yet, and so they kind of retitled them. So, for example, Final Fantasy, I believe they called it 2. It was actually Final Fantasy 4. And I believe Final Fantasy 6 here is actually 3 for Japan. But in terms of the original first three Final Fantasies, 2 and 3 include, as you mentioned, I've never actually played them. I know that they were eventually released on handhelds, but I've yet to play them, so I can't really say anything about Final Fantasies 2 or 3. Next question comes from Matt CRUZ. He wants to know, what rage-inducing moment have I experienced in one of my favorite games? Well, this actually happened just last year. I was playing the kind of remastering of Ratchet and Clank, and the most frustrating part about the game was definitely the hoverboard race. For some reason, the hoverboard race was a lot harder than I remember. I don't remember being as frustrating as it was back on the PlayStation 2 back then, but I was at it for so many hours, and I had so many close races where I almost won, and because in order to get the Platinum Trophy, or the final trophy I need in order to get the Platinum Trophy, you had to come in first place and have a specific time. And there were like several shortcuts and specific jumps that you had to do, and it just took me hours, and I was just getting pissed off. But luckily I didn't rage quit. I just kept at it, and eventually I did it. So it was a very fulfilling moment when I actually did get the Platinum Trophy. But I was definitely in rage mode during those 3 hours I was trying to do it. The next question comes from Shiny MEGAGENGAR, and you want to know, will Dante appear in a versus matchup? Yes, he will. A match involving Dante has already been announced. If you actually look back at my kind of schedule in terms of matches that I have planned for this season, you would know that the match I have planned for probably my season finale is going to be Final Fantasy Advent Children Cloud against... I haven't decided. I'm kind of trying to figure out whether I should use Devil May Cry 3 Dante or Devil May Cry 1. I'm leaning more towards 1, but we haven't quite gotten there yet. But that is the match that is already planned for Dante for the season finale of this season. So yes, Dante will be showing up. Next question comes from Zyborg136, and you want to know, what 3 characters from any franchise could be in Star Wars and make a difference or be relevant? That's a tough one. 3 characters who could be relevant. Okay, it would... In order to be relevant, it would... I guess you could... Okay, I mean, just off the top of my head, I guess you could throw in Commander Shepard. I guess he could become... I mean, someone... Or the crew of the Normandy. I guess they could be... I mean... They really could be part of their own adventure without actually having to interact with anything in the main canon or anything that's in the forefront. They really could just be on their own adventure. I mean, heck, you could even say that Mass Effect takes place in Star Wars universe and it really wouldn't affect it too much. I guess the crew of the Star Trek Enterprise, depending on whether you want to use Picard or, you know, Captain Kirk. I mean, you could have the Federation exist in another part of the galaxy, and maybe they come in contact with the Republic, maybe. And I guess another group of people that could be relevant in Star Wars is, I don't know, maybe some, I don't know, world-destroying entity being from Final Fantasy. I don't know. It could be any number of questions. I mean, there's no real limits to Star Wars. You could go as crazy as you want. I mean, the mythology of Star Wars goes back so far back, and it's so in depth. You could add anyone into Star Wars at any point, and you know it probably wouldn't change many things. I mean, there's certain rules that they would have to follow, but you know the possibilities are endless. The next question comes from Ivan Gallagher. I hope I said that right. And you want to know, if I could alter the fate of any video game, making a failed game into a success or vice versa, which game would I pick and what would be its fate? I would love to redo not Final Fantasy. I would love to redo Star Wars: The Force Unleashed 2. That's probably one of the most disappointing games I've ever played. It's just so disappointing because The Force Unleashed 1 was just so good. They really could have done so much more with Force Unleashed 2, but it was just too short. It felt rushed. It felt really too easy. I mean, I knew that something was wrong when I went to the midnight premiere for that game, and you know, I wasn't in line for that long. I pick up the game, I come home, I play it, and I beat it like in 3 hours on the hardest difficulty. I knew there was just something wrong. It should have been so much longer. We should have gone to so many more planets. There should have been more characters, and the story should have linked up better to the canon that was official at the time. Because it really did kill any possible chance that we could have gotten for Force Unleashed 3, because the way that Force Unleashed 2 ends, it kind of cuts off. So I kind of would like to continue that storyline and have it kind of play into the films. So I think that's like the one game I would like to go back and fix and make it a better game. The next question comes from Joe O'Coliot, and you want to know, Riddick versus Solid Snake, who would win? I'd say out of most scenarios, I think Solid Snake would probably win, just because I think as a fighter, his accomplishments are much greater than anything Rick has ever actually done. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Rick's done some pretty crazy things. I mean, he escaped out of Butcher Bay. He took on the Necro Army. Did a bunch of different feats. Survived multiple different planets. I mean, he's the most wanted convict in the galaxy. But Solid Snake is the greatest soldier, or you could say is probably the greatest soldier of all time. I mean, he took down the former greatest soldier of all time, and then Big Boss took down the former greatest soldier of all time and the boss himself. So it was kind of a crazy chain. The only scenario that I think that Riddick would probably beat Solid Snake is if he got him into a dark room and Solid Snake did not have any night vision goggles or any way to track him, because it's really in the dark that Riddick is at his strongest. But if he's forced to fight just in a straight up fight against Solid Snake, he's probably going to lose. The next question comes from Ladybug012, and you want to know, if it was not the Norse gods, which one of these do you think Kratos should face up? The Egyptian gods or monsters, or the Christian god, devil, the archangels, archdemons, and monsters? You can't use the Christian god. You just can't, because there's only two. There's God and Satan, and those two guys have enough problems fighting each other, so there's no need to throw Kratos in the mix. I'd say you'd have a better chance of putting him against the Egyptian gods, but they don't really interact with the Egyptians all that much. It's more through just faith and worshipness. I don't think you could put him up against either one, but you'd have a better chance putting him up against the Egyptian gods, because the Egyptian gods all have specific roles. There are multiple different gods, and so they're kind of somewhat comparable to the Greek gods, but probably not as relevant as, I'd say, the Greek gods were, or more popular, I would say. So, yeah, I would lean more towards the Egyptian gods, but I wouldn't say you really could do it. Next question comes from Michael BILAND, and you want to know, what is one of my most disappointing games of all time? Oh, that's an easy one. I don't hold this. Definitely Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. My God, I wanted to like that game so much. This is not how I wanted my favorite franchise of all time to go out, but I to this day, I still have no idea what the hell Konami was doing. I don't know what Hideo Kojima could have done, but he could not have done anything to deserve that kind of treatment. They intentionally sabotaged this game, and this has been documented. We know they were tampering with this game, and it's terrible because it kind of messes up with the continuity of the Metal Gear Solid lore that had been established over the past 20 years. I mean, nothing in that game is relevant. Literally nothing in that game is relevant to the overarching story. Not a single damn element. The only thing that you get out of that game is the fact that the first big boss that you fight in the first Metal Gear wasn't really a big boss, it was actually just a clone. Well, why not just say that he survived and he escaped the Metal Gear before it exploded? That had been the explanation for all these years. Why change that? That is the only thing that it adds, and it's not even all that important. The story that we wanted to see is completely off screen. I don't want to watch a story about some medic getting some facial reconstruction and playing dress up and make-believe to make himself believe that he's big boss when he's really not. I thought it was just a bullshit story. I would love to have an opportunity to remake that game, and it's just too late because now it's already fucked. And going into Metal Gear Survive, which I have no plans on playing, we know that from this point on, the entire Metal Gear Solid franchise, or Metal Gear franchise I should say, is going to be sabotaged on purpose. But heck, Hideo Kojima is working on to better things. Hopefully Konami loses the rights to Metal Gear and someone takes control of it and actually treats this franchise with the respect it deserves. Because I love this franchise and I just hate to see it treated like this. And the last question of the episode comes from NAPPINGSNIPER, and you want to know, will I watch Samurai Jack Season 5 return on March 11th? Yeah, sure, why not? I gotta admit, I was never really much of a Samurai Jack fan back in the day when it was popular, but, you know, if I hear a lot of good things, I'll be more than happy to check it out. And if those are the questions that you guys sent in for this particular episode, I'd like to thank all of you guys for making this episode possible. If you guys have any more questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below. Make sure you get them in to me before next Wednesday before I start filming this. And remember, it's only one question per person. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next time.